What is up, NFL fans, and welcome back to another episode of For Your Viewing Pleasure. I'm Jeff Hartman, joined by Wesley Coleman as we recap championship weekend and get you ready an early look at the Super Bowl 59 down in, Wesley knows New Orleans very well. But Wesley, welcome to the show. How's it going?
Doing good, man. We had at least a lot of points scored. I guess we didn't have to worry about the over-unders like we thought we would for both of these games.
Well, we were right on with the first game. We said take the over for sure, and
Yep.
that over of, was it 47 and a half?
Yeah, the
Uh,
Eagles did that by themselves with their 55
Yes, they
points.
did. Yes, they did, for sure. So the final score of that first game, let's talk about that one first. Philadelphia 55, Washington 23. If you woke up from a coma, you would say, wow, that was a blowout. That probably wasn't even entertaining. Even in the second half, this game was a lot closer, and then just turnovers absolutely screwed them. Some really untimely fumbles, special teams mistakes and gaffes. And I give Washington a lot of credit. I mean, they hung with the Eagles for a while, but again, you can't beat a good team like Philadelphia while turning it over. What was your takeaway from this game?
Yeah, I mean it's you would have thought that probably this game, if it was there was gonna be 4 turnovers by the Commanders and 0 by the Eagles, you'd think, okay, finally a game got too big for Jaden Daniels, and he's got sacked and fumbled a few times. Nope, wasn't him. At the end of
Yep.
the game, he did throw an interception, but that's this game wasn't on him at all. And like you said, so there's 21 unanswered points by the Eagles in the fourth quarter alone. But before that, this game was always just like one play away from being a really close game. Like when it was a 12-point game for a lot of the second half, and or I mean for late in the second quarter, and then it was a lot closer than this for the entire game. You kept thinking like, okay, the Commanders just needed a stop or a turn. Like it got obvious they needed a turnover to get back, but yeah, I mean the final score looks like a terrible blowout.
I mean, in the first half, you think about it. So the Eagles were just quick striking the hell out of the Commanders, and they're up 14-3, and it looks like the Commanders are going to go 3-and-out. But then they credit Quinn because he's got to give the okay as the head coach. He okays the fake punt. They execute it. They end up going down and getting a field goal. Things get tight. Things tighten up a little bit, but nonetheless, the Eagles do find a way to win. Saquon Barkley is he's a very special player, and I think this is a really good example, in my opinion, just as a quick sidebar, that it's so much about NFL success. And I say the NFL because football's the ultimate team game. Depends on where you are. Like what team are you on? What offensive line are you running behind? This is the same Saquon Barkley that was with the New York Giants. Doesn't look like it, but it is. And boy, is he something else. I think that Saquon Barkley is, I've said it before on this show, I'll repeat it. He's the MVP. He's the most valuable player for his team. I don't think he's going to win it because it's now turned into the most valuable quarterback award. But any thoughts on the Eagles and the offense and Saquon Barkley?
Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of different opinions on what MVP means. And generally, the true meaning of MVP is not who wins the MVP, because it's normally like the best quarterback on the best team wins the MVP
Right.
more than the most valuable player. But Saquon is the most valuable player in football, because Jalen Hurts might win a Super Bowl in a couple of weeks, but he's not a great quarterback. He's a good quarterback and he's doing right. But Saquon Barkley is taking him and this team to a whole different level and makes Jalen Hurts' job a lot easier. But by the way, he can throw and then also run the ball. So Saquon Barkley getting the Eagles being in the Super Bowl tells me 100% that Saquon Barkley is the most valuable player
Yeah.
in football. And he's been one of my favorite players to watch. He's dealt with injuries. He's played more games than people probably think. He's had, outside of one season, he's played at least 13 games a season. He had his one season where he only played 2 games, but he's played 13, 14, and 16 games for every other season. So he's played more than you think. But when not injured, I think he's the best player in football. Stuff he does is insane, and it's fun to watch him, even though I hate the Eagles.
Yeah, and you see, he's got the massage gun on the calf. Like these guys are banged up. The extra week off before the Super Bowl is really going to benefit him. It's going to benefit Jalen Hurts, who's still dealing with that knee injury. But let's go back to Washington real quick because we'll talk about Philadelphia as we get ready for the Super Bowl. There are teams that can sneak up and actually get on a hot tear, and they get to in this case, the NFC Championship. But then they kind of fall off, and maybe it was just a good run of football. When you look at this Washington team and where they are heading into the offseason, do you think they have staying power, or do you think this was kind of like a blip on the radar?
No, I think they have a lot of staying power, and they've got a ton of cap space coming up this next year. They, I believe, they have nearly $90 million, and that's without any cuts or restructures or anything like that. They're going to go and probably shore up their offensive line a little bit, get Jaden Daniels a couple of receiving threats, because he's doing this with very old Zach Ertz.
Yep.
And who's still very good, but not peak Zach Ertz, and Terry McLaurin, and then a couple of guys that, listen, I mean, he's making Brown look good, but I don't know if he's as good as what Jaden Daniels is making him look. They're going to get him some weapons, and I think Washington is set up to be very, very dangerous. It sure looks like Cliff Kingsbury is going to stay there. He's not interviewing with anybody. He's getting paid as a head coach still from his Arizona days. He has one more year of getting the Arizona head coach money. He has no benefit to him to go take a head coach job yet. So play another year with Jaden Daniels, show how good you are, and then he'll be Ben Johnson next season. We'll go wherever he wants and hand pick a place that already has a young quarterback or something. So I think Washington's a scary team moving forward, because they seem like Dan Quinn's been around long enough. He's going to help steer them in the right direction. And honestly, probably a team that deserves it after just having one of the worst owners in the history of sports, and not just bad decision making, but just being a bad person, and having your fan base just tortured for years by probably loving your team and hating the guy that owns them. So with Dan Snyder, of course, but I mean, they deserve it, and I love Jaden Daniels. There's not a better guy to be the face of your franchise, I don't think.
Yeah, as an LSU fan, I know you're a big supporter of Jaden Daniels. I will say this: the run that the Commanders went on, if it did one thing, Jaden Daniels is a household name now. We knew that. He's been great all season. People now know who Terry McLaurin is. The football fans know who he is. Scary Terry. He's tremendous. Came out of Ohio State. The dude, you talk about going through some rough times. Like, he's played with some really crappy quarterbacks. He's probably looking at Jaden Daniels saying, I know we didn't get to the Super Bowl, but damn, I'm excited for next year and for the year after that and the year after that. So good for him. But we'll get to the Eagles for those Philly fans that might be waiting to hear us wax poetic about them. We'll talk about them in a little bit. Let's go to the AFC game. We had the Kansas City Chiefs 32-29 over the Buffalo Bills. For all the fans out there that are like me, and I think like you, Wesley, that said anyone but the Chiefs, it's a disappointing result. What was your knee-jerk reaction from this game?
Yeah, I'm going to stop saying that there's no conspiracy theories in the NFL, and I hate that. I hate it.
Yes.
I have for 13, 14 years now, since the Bounty Gate BS of the Saints told everybody, even my own fan base, to shut up and stop it. And even though I've joked about it and said things this year and said it was weird, I last week sat on here with you and said, it's not a real conspiracy. It's because we're told to protect the stars, and there's not a bigger star. Right. So it just, in the back of their mind, they protect him. Okay. Well, this week we have two calls that didn't have to do with Patrick Mahomes.
True.
And the replay booth looked at them as many times as it needed to. And we have the most obvious not catch I've ever seen called a catch, followed by the most obvious, Josh Allen clearly having the ball across not a yellow line, a white line that was a first down, and neither one of them being called the right way, which both would have been in favor of the Bill. I hate doing this. I'm not the conspiracy theory guy. I know you would like a great one, but this is where I finally was like, all right, there's something going on. This is weird, because we got on X and Twitter that everybody, all they do is argue with each other. 99.9% of the planet agrees. Even there's some Chiefs fans like, wow, that's interesting. That was unreal.
Yeah.
It was, and you know what? I'm disgusted by it. And Patrick Mahomes is great. Andy Reid is one of the best coaches in the history of football. Travis Kelce is one of the best, like, get together, get up for a big game in the playoffs that there's ever been. And the fact that this is how I'm left feeling, like I should be excited about seeing history of a three-peat. Instead, I'm just disgusted by this team should not be in this game. If they'd have won this by 20, I'd be like, well, those didn't really. It's a 3-point game that they were tied. Then the Bills were going down to win the game or take a almost insurmountable lead. And it's just, it's disgusting. I hate it.
So you're talking about the Xavier Worthy catch, which was, again, it was not a catch. And what people are arguing about a lot of times on social media is who had possession of the ball. The ball hit the ground. And if you're debating on who had possession and the ball hits the ground, what does that mean?
Nobody had the ball.
Incomplete pass. That means that if you're both arguing over who has it, no one has it. Ball hits the ground, incomplete. Now, I do believe, I'd have to go back and check to make sure. I do believe there was a defensive holding call on that play.
Yeah, they would have still gotten a 5-yard penalty and a first down, but they wouldn't have been at the 2-yard line.
Exactly. That's the key point. But the biggest thing for me, and you and I on X, we were not arguing with each other. We had a little back and forth because I said that after that when they botched the 4th down conversion with Josh Allen, where you had one side judge coming in, giving him the yard to gain, the other one from the Chiefs sideline coming in, not giving him the yard to gain, and somehow or another, they end up going with the guy that came from the Chiefs sideline as the spot. Now, go ahead. What are you going to say?
Couple of just things to clarify to catch up. Now I want you to continue. The play before, Dalton Kincaid got a first down, and they called him a half-yard short. Yeah. On 3rd down, Dalton Kincaid dove for a first down without a knee on the ground. So we didn't even need to be having this 4th down play. Then, where you're talking about the different referees, Josh Allen's facing one referee.
Yeah, good.
Josh Allen's facing one referee, and the ball is facing one referee. That referee is walking with it being a first down. The referee that you're referencing from the Kansas City sideline, whose spot they used, was behind Josh Allen and couldn't see a single piece of the ball. Yeah. And they went with his spot.
It's frustrating. And so I had said on X, to let everyone know in case they're not keen to our conversations, obviously, which are public. I said it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, the NFL, and they're still using the methods of chains and sticks and old white guys. And I said that, and someone said that sounds like age discrimination. But still, it's the fact that this is how they're still doing this. And they had a conference in the most crucial point of the game as to who saw it right. And like you said, the guy that won that conference, Josh Allen's back was to him the entire time. I have a couple issues, and then I want to come full circle with this. Replay assist was put into motion for this exact case, where you say from the booth, we have a visual replay that shows he did get the line to gain, put the ball here, first down Bills, let's move on with our lives. And it's the same with Xavier Worthy's catch, even though that was challenged by Sean McDermott. I just don't understand what they're doing. But then some people in the because that tweet kind of had its own lifespan for a while. There were some people that brought up a point, and I hate to say this, but they said, because I mentioned tennis, how tennis has this technology of, right away, it's in or it's out. How can we not have chips in the footballs to know whether they've gotten the line of gain? And they said that then the NFL can't control situations like this. And then Wesley, like my conspiracy theory mind, just started to run rampant. And they're right. They are right. The more I think about it, the more I agree with them. The NFL wants to have these moments, and they want to control those moments. And whether or not they feel like the point spread is 1.5, or whether it's this is the Chiefs and Andy Reid's been up my back game, I don't care. But they control those moments. The NFL wants that. They could have implemented this technology 5 years ago. God's honest truth, they could have had this in the 2020 season probably, and they just have drugged their feet on it for whatever reason. I don't know, man. I'm with you. I mean, I've been saying it all along. Like, they've been getting favorable calls, and it's just now coming to a head. And you just have to ask yourself, is there going to be another call? Because the last time they played the Eagles, there's that questionable pass interference call. Are they going to get another one of those in the Super Bowl? And I think the answer is a resounding yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, then things you're referring to. So, one, there are younger, faster, better visioned human beings on earth than what is refereeing the NFL games. First of all, so there are people more agile and able to get in there, but can see better and all. And that's just one thing. Beyond that, there are footballs with microchips in them that
Mhm.
wherever you set the ball on first down when it's 1st and 10, it knows where it's at, and then it knows that before fourth down has the ball gone more than 10 yards, like to the millimeter. It can tell you if they made first down or not. It doesn't need replay. It would be just automatic. It comes up on the scoreboard. It's first down. And we just keep going. It wouldn't slow down the game, wouldn't change anything. We would know exactly how how far you've gone and if the ball made it to the
Yeah.
first down. We would not have that. But just talking about the current state of the NFL, there's 75,000 cameras at the field with every angle, and we can see it. We watched, and the one that's later in the game, the fourth down, is just it's the one that's talked about the most because it's later in the game and it would have kept their drive going. But at least, I mean, there's like a 1% that I can go like, okay, well, they're just saying that they had a bad angle, or they're saying this, and I can at least make a 1% excuse of how they're just a moron and why they didn't give it. The catch earlier, I can't at all excuse. I can't come up with 1/1000th of a reason of why that was called a catch. It's a clear and obvious. The ball's laying on the green grass. Like again with the other one, you can be like, oh well, he was at this angle and his shoulder was here and his feet were there, and then he got maybe. But Worthy's not got the ball with two hands and the ball's laying on the ground. I don't know. It's really weird. And again, there's lots of ways to not have this problem, but we already have for these two, we already have the technology and it should have worked because all of us with proper vision like saw it and watch. I don't know. It's really frustrating to me. And again, what you said about this $1 billion industry, all we're going to hear about the next 2 weeks is three-peat. Chiefs going to go in for 3 in a row. It's never been done. So they are going to get the commercials that they want and the money they want from that. That's what it's going to be about is Patrick Mahomes three-peat.
This was my worst nightmare. I didn't care. Like I wanted the Bills to win, just something different. But if the Chiefs won it and there was no controversy whatsoever, hey, good for you guys. Like seriously, you won 15 games or 16 games in the regular season. You earned yourself a bye. Go win a Super Bowl and win your three-peat. But the fact that we just spent almost 10 minutes and we haven't even talked about an actual like football play yet. We haven't talked about Josh Allen playing a really good football, James Cook. We haven't talked about, on from the Chiefs that played well. Xavier Worthy actually had a great game outside of the catch, non-catch. So, and we haven't brought up, he brought up Andy Reid, but he and Steve Spagnuolo called it a great game. We haven't talked about that. We're talking about the damn officials. That's what pisses me off the most because I would love nothing more than to say there's no conspiracy in the league. They're not giving me much hope or a leg to stand on.
Well, and the other thing is like, so I like Patrick Mahomes. He's worked with a friend of mine's charity since he was back at Texas Tech, and stellar human being and incredible quarterback. He's played 7 seasons, 5 of them he's won an AFC championship. The other 2 he's lost once to Burrow and once to Brady. Like he's the greatest first 7 years of a career of in any sport ever.
Probably, yeah.
I mean, and I, as much as I have the Chiefs fatigue and all, like I don't dislike Patrick Mahomes, and it would be cool to be able to sit here and talk about like that we're witnessing greatness. And yes, it's annoying, but he's still great, and it's undeniable. But it's again gross that one of my biggest overarching things from this game is that he doesn't deserve to be in the Super Bowl next week.
It's true.
I hate that.
In the NFL, what pisses me off the most is they know these narratives exist. They know people are recognizing it and they're doing nothing to change it. And they'll come to get ready for it this offseason. The competition committee will meet and they'll say, we should probably expand the replay assist, and it'll dive into quarterbacks sliding late, and
They
it'll
are going to
dive
do. I believe that
yeah,
really will
for
happen.
sure. I'm sure it will, but it's not going to matter. They're not going to change anything. Replay assist is great on paper. It's great when someone's explaining it on the airwaves. But if they're never going to use it in an AFC championship game at a critical juncture, then what is it? What are we doing? Well, what are we doing? So,
it's 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah.
That one, the Texans, multiple Texans players, and I think maybe coaches, but definitely players getting fined for making comments about the referees. And the Chiefs have played 2 playoff games. They beat the Texans in a game where the Texans outgained them by 100 yards and had no turnovers. It's the first time in 50 games in the history of the NFL playoffs that has happened. That the other team won. And then this one where we have multiple video evidence of weird calls. It's just a couple of great playoff games for the Chiefs.
Yeah, and so that's where we are. And so now here we have, the Bills. I've said it before, I'll say it again. They seem like a cursed franchise. And go ahead. What are you going to say to that?
I've got something for you that I think you're going to like.
Yes, go for it.
So the Chiefs traded up to draft Patrick Mahomes, right?
Yes.
They traded up to the 10th pick to draft him. The team that traded away the 10th pick is the Buffalo Bills. What if they are cursed?
Maybe.
The Chiefs
traded with the Bills last draft, and didn't they get? Isn't that when they got Xavier Worthy? Like the Bills are openly like, yeah, let's just make a trade. Like I would never trade. That's almost like an interdivision trade, which are in the draft, which would be so weird.
Is this the new curse of the Bambino? Where the Red Sox lost to the Yankees forever and couldn't win a World Series. The Bills just, having said that, this is what the Bills were way before this. Like this is just the Bills being the Bills again.
Yeah.
Of not being able to get the big game.
Someone said to me, they were talking to me about this, and they asked, like, well, what do you think about it? And I was like, yeah, it sucks. But, the Bills could have had an opportunity. They said, well, what would you feel like if it was the Steelers that were in the Bills' shoes? I'd be livid. I would be beside myself.
Terrible.
So, all right, let's do some early look ahead to the Super Bowl. We'll talk about this next week as well to get you really ready for the Super Bowl. But here we have a repeat matchup. A couple years ago, we had same Eagles, Chiefs, a little bit different. I've said this on other shows. I'll say it here as well. I like the way Philadelphia matches up with Kansas City. Again, if we're not talking about calls going the Chiefs way and all that stuff, I like the way they match up offensively and their ability to run the football. I like the way defensively they match up with the Chiefs' skill position players. I think this could be a really good game, as much as I hate to say it, as much as I wanted Buffalo in there. You agree or disagree?
Yeah, I think so. You got the Chiefs that give up 148 yards a game rushing, and that equals like 275 Saquon Barkley yards.
It's true.
Which changes the whole game. And then what the Eagles have been doing with Jalen Carter, how he's been playing, him and Chris Jones both on each side of the ball or each side of their respective defenses are going to really affect this game. And I think it's a good matchup both ways. I think it's going to go over the 49.5 points. That's the over under. And then right now, Kansas City's favored by 1.5. Eagles are technically the home team.
That's interesting. That is really interesting. I think that I want to see what that line is next week. I want to see if it moves at all.
I think it's going to adjust.
I think it'll adjust. I think that total should adjust. I think it should adjust north. Like, what is it, 49.5?
Yes.
Man, that seems like it's the pinnacle, though. Like, it would be really tough to tell me that
that's a lot for a Super Bowl.
That is the because Super Bowls typically start slow as teams get their footing. So we'll see. But all right, what's your final thoughts from conference championship weekend? Anything?
Man, I'm gonna try to kind of put the last 2 games of not understanding why the Chiefs won behind me, especially this Bills game. I wanted the Bills to win, but I am going to try to over the next few weeks just think about that. We're possibly looking at history. Them going for a three-peat. If that gets upset, that's actually going to be exciting too, even though I hate the Eagles. The Saquon Barkley story over the next few years is going to be pretty amazing that a team that he was with his entire career made no attempt to sign him. And the fact that it was on Hard Knocks, those memes are going to get back over and over again for years to the Giants to torture them. And I don't know if the things we've seen from Saquon this year, he's a great guy and wants good things for the rest of his teammates. Even though he ran for over 2,000 yards, he hasn't been selfish at all. I think it'll be a fun matchup. I'll look forward to the game. There's a lot of people doing that. I'm not going to watch the Super Bowl this year.
That's a bunch of
shut up. You're watching the Super Bowls, and you'll be like, well, I watched it for the commercial. You're watching the Super Bowl.
You're watching the Super Bowl. Exactly. It's the last NFL game of the year until next fall. So yeah, you're going to watch, but I'll say this. I saw, it was a funny meme on Twitter and it showed who are fans rooting for in the Super Bowl. And so there's a small little blob around Kansas City that has the Chiefs. There's a small little blob around Philly with the Eagles. And then the rest of the country is gray. And the gray part is they're hoping for a meteor strike to just end the game. I get that sentiment. I'm also thinking this could be a very entertaining football game. And I am not going to be of the ilk that I'm not going to watch and blah, blah, blah. Do I think the NFL is rigged? Yes. Have I been saying that for a long time? Yes. Do I still watch the NFL? Every freaking week I do. Yep. So that tells you all you need to know about me. I'm going to watch no matter what. But we'll be back next week for sure to really start to dive into the minutia of the Super Bowl, injury reports and things like that. We'll maybe even talk about some prop plays that we think might be successful, and we'll give you our picks and all that stuff next week. But in the meantime, why don't you let everyone know, Wesley, where they can find your Saints coverage?
Oh, don't skip over that. We'll have a Pro Bowl wrap up.
That's true. Gosh, how did I forget that? The Manning versus Manning flag football game. How can we not
see who
talk
gets arrested
about
this year, right? You can find me on X at @WhoDatWesley13. I'm on the Dome Patrol podcast covering the New Orleans Saints at Dome Patrol PCast. Jeff, where can we find you and your Steelers coverage?
Yeah, so if you want to check out the Steelers coverage, go to Steel Curtain Network, wherever you get your podcasts. We're on every platform. Just search Steel Curtain Network. And then also, if you want to find me individually, it's J Hartman, HARTMAN_PIT on Twitter or X. That's it, man. Thanks for your time, Wesley. We'll be talking next week, getting you ready for the Super Bowl. Take it easy, my friend.
See you, Jeff.